I'm Jess Dakotas.
And I'm Nick Colziel. Welcome to That Sounds Terrifying, the podcast where we share terrifying stories, we share listener experiences, and we visit virtually some of the most haunted places in the United States and the world.
Hello and welcome to That Sounds Terrifying. I am Jess. That is Nick, as you know,
Or maybe you don't. I don't
or maybe
know.
you don't.
If it's your first time listening, that's Jess and I'm Nick. Not to be confused with Jessica. That's another friend of ours.
Yeah, don't
But
call
for
me
some
Jessica.
reason, I've called her Jessica before. I don't know
Yeah,
why. Maybe it's because it's written on her little screen thing on the Zoom, but I don't know.
probably.
Probably not.
Um, yeah, no, I don't know why I just Jessica is like so formal to me, and I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
It sounds terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm called
Almost
Jessica.
like, yeah, mom is calling you out on something and you have
Yeah,
to get
that's
the
kind of
middle
what it
name in there,
is.
right? That would be terrifying, right?
Mm-hmm. But anyways, we have some good stories today. I found some good Reddit ones. I have some like personal ones too that I might share at the end. But Nick, you have a Hatman story.
Yeah. Yeah. I
I
found that
have
one.
a workplace story and one that's just kind of funny. Um, but yeah, do you want to get started? Do you want to start?
Sure, I can get started. We'll just jump right
Fantastic.
in. All
Do
right.
it.
My experience with the Hat Man came in 1994 when I was about 14 years old. I was living with my grandmother and great grandmother at the time in my home in Nashville, Tennessee. I had been staying up really late that night, and at about 2 a.m., I found myself lying in bed and nodding off as I was watching TV. The lights were all off, and the only light that was lighting the room was from the TV set in front of me. But whenever I was lying, I looked down at my feet and had a clear view all the way into and through my great grandmother's room, which was just parallel with mine. So there was no door between my room and hers. I could just see into the hallway, just to the far side of her room, just the inside hallway and the doorway going into my grandmother's room. As I was lying there with the covers kind of pulled up to my face, nodding off, my eyes would open and fall over and over again. And then, at some point, I heard the TV make a noise and caused me to wake up and open my eyes a little wider. Only this time, I saw something out of the corner of my eye. I always had this weird fear about intruders and what I would do if someone ever broke into our home. For a moment, I thought that was the movement. I might be seeing my grandmother getting up and going to the bathroom, but I just wasn't sure. And as I moved my eyes more into focus and looking down through my great grandmother's room into the hallway, I kind of realized that it wasn't my grandmother. What I saw gripped me immediately with fear and dread. I saw a tall, human like figure, and the figure looked like that of a man. But the man had no distinguishable features whatsoever. I couldn't see eyes, a nose, a mouth. It was just only blackness. He stood there, a shadow, but only darker, much darker. He had a very wide brimmed hat and a long trench coat that seemed to flow as he moved. I started to tremble, my heart began to race. At that moment, I came to that conviction that there was indeed an intruder in my house, and I watched him move. In the back of my mind, I began to play out scenarios as to what he was going to do and what I was going to do. Was I going to yell? Was I going to get up and run after him and try to fight him? I just kept looking into the hallway. He stood there at the threshold between my great grandmother's room and my grandmother's room. He leaned his head and body into the room and looked in, turning his head towards her and then back towards me. I had my eyes closed as much as I could, but I could still just see him. It was like I was sleeping but looking through my eyelids. He stood there for what seemed like an eternity, just staring. He then moved very slowly, without a sound, back into the hallway just out of view. As I kept watching, I then saw this blacker than black figure move towards my grandmother's room, just like before. He leaned with his body and head into the doorway, looking in at her. Again, not making a sound, he leaned back and moved out of view into the hallway. At this point, I didn't know what to do. I was convinced that he was some sort of kind of burglar in the house, so I summed up as much courage as I could, jumped out of bed yelling, and charged into the hallway ready for a fight. I turned around the hallway, and he was gone. So, what do you think of that one?
He he was ready for a fight with
Yeah.
with a ghostly figure. Yeah, I mean, I get it. Um, that would be creepy. But what if it was grandma?
Just beat up grandma.
Yeah, I
Right.
was running around ready for a fight, and it was grandma. She's like, "Ow!"
I just was putting on grandpa's old trench coat and hat and
Yeah,
walking around the house.
yeah. I
What the
miss
hell?
him.
Yeah. Oh man, I mean, when I first read through that, I thought it was interesting, and it kind of reminded me of a lot of the traditional, like Hat Man stories. It was a little
Yeah,
confusing with having the grandmother and great grandmother kind of like things stirred in there, and that's where I'm like thinking, oh, it's probably not made up. Then he probably really, or she probably really felt this experience or had this experience because you know to confuse the to confuse us about who's the great grandmother, my grandmother, and like the other
and the
thing
Hat
that,
Man.
yeah, and the Hat Man wore grandpa's clothes. But like the thing that terrified me more was there's no freaking doors on in this house. Like you can just see into everybody's rooms. That's kind of
Yeah,
creepy.
but also they were sleeping. They were
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I could see through my eyelids," and I'm like, "Wow, it sounds like you're dreaming."
Yeah. I think they were trying to say they were like squinting or something like that. But yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
So I know that was kind of a quick one. But it just kind of one of those stories when I was combing through, I'm like, oh, that's a good one to start with.
Creepy.
It's
Yeah,
creepy.
he was creepy. Creepy Hat Man.
Creepy Hat
Dislike.
Man. So
Um, no, totally. I'm gonna start with speaking of grandparents. This one's just kind of cute. I found it on Reddit under ghost stories by Sunflower Lover 1.
you always get the best Reddit name stories. Like
Seriously,
mine are always like Tim 3. I'm like, way to go,
yeah.
Tim, and be creative.
I mean, they remind me of AIM screen names so
Yeah.
much. And like, I was one of my oldest friends came to visit last week, and I remembered his AIM screen name, and I'm like, I told him, I'm like, I referred to him as that, and he was like, "Oh my God, I haven't thought of that name in forever." And
Yeah.
I was like, I know. I mean, like if somebody called me like whatever mine was, I don't even remember mine, but
I was going to
I
ask
rem
you what was yours.
I don't I think I had two.
I had
One
two as well.
was Autumn 2785 because that was I was born in the autumn, and then
At 2785.
2785 and then I don't I don't know the other one. I can't it was
Yeah.
something about stars, like Starry Eyes 8 or something.
You know what's funny? Mine was stars in his eyes.
Oh, really? That's funny.
So,
Oh my
and
God, AIM
I
screen names determine the future.
right? And well, I got that name. I don't think I've ever shared this on the show, but I had a friend and her grandfather was Native American.
Uh,
And he always used to say something in his native tongue, and I really wish I could remember how it was said. In fact, I've even tried to look it up and like how to pronounce it, and I can't. But I eventually I just asked like, what is he saying? Like every time he sees me, he says this, and he's like, oh, she says like it's just the name that he's sort of. It's not an Indian name. It's just a name he's sort of like would refer to me as like because I always looked like I had the stars in my eyes. So and that's what he called me. So it was kind of funny.
hmm.
Um, but it also is funny. I kind of follow a couple people on TikTok and they're always like, I don't, I'm like I kind of wish I hadn't told the story because they're always saying like, oh, the white man is always asking for their Indian native name and like it could mean something else. It could have meant something way different, but my friend was being kind to me or something like that because a couple of these people that I follow say, yeah, so I just make up a name and it really doesn't mean what I say it makes. So it's like, okay. Kind of like, some people go and get a tattoo in like, Chinese or Japanese writing and
Yeah.
they think it says like, something really cool and it
Yeah.
says like you're a freaking jerk or something.
Yeah. They'll be like, this one means determination. And then they finally get
It's like
a
loser.
Chinese friend who's like, that says like sugar dumpling. You're like, oh,
Pees his pants.
yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyways, that's where Stars in His Eyes came from. And then the other one that I had was because I was a huge Smashing Pumpkins fan, Corgan Eha. So it was Billy Corgan and James
Oregon.
Eha. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes
So
sense. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Well, we went on
Um,
a tangent, so sorry.
no, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, like somebody needs to stop me from staying awake on my phone all night because I literally just bought more concert tickets last night.
Where are you going?
I'm gonna go see Rainbow Kitten Surprise, not once but twice.
You're a
Because
roadie,
yeah, so
groupie.
it's I mean I do like them, but the reason I'm seeing them twice is because I do like them. So I got VIP tickets to one show, but the other show I just bought like regular tickets because I love their opener Petey, and not
Oh.
many people have heard of this guy, but he started as like a funny TikTok guy. Like he
Mm.
does really funny TikTok skits, but he's so good. Like his lyrics are amazing. He's got like this raw voice. Like he's cool and he's funny. Like some of his stuff is funny and some of it's really like emotional, but I don't know. He's cool. If you haven't heard of him or, like look him up. He's PD in the USA on
PD in
TikTok,
the
but yeah,
USA.
Petey, PD. He's good. And like when I find people that actually know who he is, I'm like, "Oh my God. I like you so much better now."
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll have to check it out because I
Check him out.
honestly I'm in the closet on that one. I have no idea who that is. So,
He is cool. So,
but
yeah, I'm gonna go see him there so I'm gonna see RKS twice in a week and I have no regrets, but I did wake up this morning and tell Evan, we're going to another show. And he was like, What are you doing? Who's watching these children? I'm like, I was
yeah,
just gonna leave them home with like some food on the floor, some newspaper. No,
yeah. We're all
we have
telling
adults to
terrible,
watch these children.
terrifying, like ghost stories and stuff like that. While Jess is like shopping for tickets for concerts at like 2 a.m.
Yeah, essentially, yes. Yeah. Like ghost comes in my room. I'm like, hey, I'm buying tickets.
Yeah.
Seeing
Wait,
shows.
you're like putting your finger out. Hold on,
Yeah, yeah.
hold
Hold
on.
on.
I just
Don't haunt me yet.
they're they're in the checkout, and I only have 10 minutes before I lose these
Exactly.
tickets.
Yeah. Do you want to do me a favor and make it not rain that day? I don't
Yeah,
know if you have
yeah,
any power over that. Anyways, yeah, I digress. Let's get to some spooky
yeah.
stuff.
We can get back to it. Cool.
Okay. So this one is labeled My Grandpa Passed Away, and the craziest thing happened right afterwards. I assume this person is very young because everything's so crazy.
That's the best title ever.
Yeah. My grandpa was always stubborn and refused to go to the doctor for anything besides his dentist. He ended up getting sepsis from an injury on his leg that he didn't tell us about until it was too late, and he had to stay in the hospital. We got the call from his nurse that he wasn't doing well and probably wouldn't make it through the night. So we rushed to get my grandma from their house to go to the hospital, see him, and say goodbye. He held on for us and eventually passed away about 15 minutes of us being there at 3:04 a.m. We stayed a couple hours with him, just chatting and sharing funny stories about him. My dad goes down to the parking lot to get my grandma's car pulled up to the entrance and tells us the craziest story. My grandpa could never figure out how to open the back hatch of my grandma's Subaru, even though I personally showed him multiple times. Just push the little button on the handle and it will open right up, I would say to him. He said it was a pain in the ass. My dad told us the minute he started the engine to warm it up, the hatch opens. He accidentally just hit the button on the key fob, so he jumps out and closes it. He backs out of the parking spot and it opens again. So he stops and gets out to close it again. Once again, he pulls up to the entrance and parks and it opens again. I guess Grandpa finally figured it out after all. Thought that was
That's
cute,
awesome.
funny.
I
Yeah.
think he finally figured it out. It's like, and he's being annoying about it. It's like, there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it.
He's
I
like,
know it now.
it is just a button. It's just
Here,
a
I can be a
button.
pain in the butt too, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's just a button.
Oh
That's funny.
man. I
Poor
can relate
grandpa.
to that though. Do you know how many times that you have to show people how to like older people how to do things sometimes? And
Yeah.
I have a relative that we've shown him like how to operate his TV. It is it is not difficult. It's like he still has a cable box, so you got to turn that on. You got to turn the TV on, and so he wrote it down. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he's so worried because he had one problem with it one time, and I think it was the actual cable was out, like it wasn't working. But he like thinks it's because if you go out of some sort of order, it will never be fixed again. So you're not allowed to touch the TV, turn it on, do anything when you're there at all, like at all. And if you do, he like completely like flips out and is so worried that it's never going to work for him again. So like trying to watch the game or something like that sometimes is impossible. And one time he even got mad at me, and I'm like, "Do you realize that I'm the person that showed you how to do all this?" Like,
God.
so it's so funny. It's beyond comical. So I can totally relate to showing someone how to do something like that time and time
Yeah.
again.
And they're just like, I still don't get it.
I don't get
I don't get it.
it.
Um,
You just remind me of Tom Hanks from the movie Big. Where have you seen that movie? Like a
oh,
long, long
well,
time ago. There's a
no
part where he's like he got that job as creating toys,
boys, yeah.
and his like sort of the one that's like his arch nemesis for the movie, Eric, I think his name was,
Hmm.
is showing off like these transformers that turn into buildings, the robots
Yeah.
that turn into buildings, and he raises his hand. He goes, "I I don't get it.
I don't get it.
I
Yeah,
don't
no,
get
and
it."
that's
Yeah. So
uh that is sometimes some people with technology.
right. What don't you get? It's a button. It opens the trunk.
Yeah,
Then you
no.
close the trunk and you hit the button. It opens.
So my trunk is
Yeah.
supposed to I have a button, but you're also supposed to be able to like kick underneath
Oh yeah.
to
Yeah.
like get it to open. It does not. That
Yeah.
feature has never worked. I've owned that car for a year and a half. It does not work.
Lies. They sit on throwing
Yeah. And I was
lies.
like, I don't think that it's actually a feature. They were just like, it's a feature. And you're like, no, it's not.
They
And
just want to see you dancing in the
yeah.
back with your foot
And I
out.
made sure that like my car was one of the ones that had that feature because I always have like my hands full and, open house signs and children and all
Yeah.
that. And I yeah, but it
Yeah.
doesn't work.
There's like a little sticker someone stuck under there that blocks the sensor.
Something. I'm
Yeah.
just bummed.
Well,
Um,
we'll figure
yeah,
it out. Or maybe,
unclear.
unclear.
So this story is a little bit scarier. Um, and it is called My Office is Haunted. We get a lot of office haunting stories. I think it's just because there's so much energy in and out of these places.
Yeah.
Okay. I work for a doctor's office that is situated beside a hospital nearly a century old. The building I work in was built 10 years ago and is 3 stories of assorted specialists and doctor's offices that aren't associated with the hospital. Behind it is the emergency room, which is actually older than the hospital. I'm not surprised about the hospital or emergency room being haunted. It holds a great amount of history, so I can expect there to be lost spirits roaming around those buildings. But I never expected those spirits to drift over to my office building, which has to be at least 50 feet away. Well, you weren't paying attention. No, I'm just kidding. My first experience happened in early morning hours 6 months ago. It wasn't quite 8 a.m. when the lobby doorknob rattled loudly. I watched the door expecting a patient to walk in, and even went to check the hallway when no one walked in. Since we are the only doctor's office on the third floor and this hallway is long, there's nowhere someone can hide. This happened a few times that morning before the first patient of the day came in. Later, as I was telling my coworkers about the odd rattling, an appointment card lifted from the card holder, flipped in the air, and landed in front of us on the desk. None of us had an explanation for it, and it has never happened again. After that, I began hearing voices in the stairwell. It sounded like someone mumbling downstairs, but there would never be anyone downstairs. Other times, I'd hear footsteps and no one would be taking the stairs but me. My coworkers heard it as well. so we knew we weren't going crazy. One coworker once had the lobby television turn on at random, flip channels, then turn back off. The remote was in a cubby, and it's an older TV, so there's no way someone could have turned it on by app. No one else in the office since it was just lunchtime. There have been times in the office chairs will roll at their stations, and we have all witnessed it happening. A couple of turns, the coffee table in the lobby has been moved, and we've heard the sound of it moving both times. This evening was the scariest of all, though. I was the last person in my office to leave, and the storms had been raging all afternoon, so I opted to take the stairs on the opposite end of the hallway. About 3/4 of the way, there were rapid footsteps behind me. I knew there was no one else in that hallway, but I looked behind me anyway, and the steps came to a quick stop. It made me nervous, and I picked up the pace. I was halfway down the stairs, just past the second floor, when the door on the third landing banged open and shut hard. I'll admit that I screamed. I waited a few seconds, mostly out of fear, and then ran down the steps. The third floor door crashed open again as I got to the first landing, and I thought I heard footsteps, but they could have been mine echoing at that point. I ran out of that building. Tomorrow I have to go in early, and I'll be alone for at least 30 minutes. Worse, there's going to be storms again, and I'll have to use the stairs. I'm scared. What do you think of that?
You made me think of this another story, but that is creepy. Like, especially like both of our stories had something about the TV in it, and like changing channels on its own. Um, it that's something that I think would freak me out, but I would still think there was a logical sort of explanation to,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like even if it's an older TV, maybe there is something operating on a frequency that's changing it or whatever.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, that I don't want to work there.
No. Not when stuff's bugging you, you
Yeah,
know? No.
yeah.
Uh,
Um,
but I think like yeah, if they're slamming things like that and that's to like that's on purpose. That is to scare you.
right.
That's malicious. That's not cool. But I do think that it was just like them probably being thinking they're funny.
Hmm.
Like they flipped the card, in the beginning. The person said that they picked up a card and flipped it, and
Yeah,
I'm wondering if that person just thought that like I guess in my mind's eye, I was thinking about how somebody came into the office thinking they're at their doctor's appointment and the person's telling this other person like nobody was there and the person's standing right there and they're like I'm right here and like
yes,
they flipping like in a
yes.
movie
We are,
like
yeah, like I was just
yeah.
thinking that we're on the same wavelength today, just like a lot of the
Oh.
things you're saying. Like I was thinking of the movie like Ghost or the same kind of premise where it's
Right,
getting frustrated because you can't see them or like and he's trying to escalate things in order to like get you to notice
right.
him or her, depending on the movie. There's so many of
Mhm.
those types of situations. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
um the storms remind me of our first guest show where the man was in that old was it an old
office building. It was
library
like an old, oh yeah, yeah, the library.
library and he was doing stuff and then he it was just storming like crazy outside
Yeah,
and there was somebody like messing with him. I wonder if the storms bring like energy
yeah,
and so it gives them more energy, because there's more electricity in the air
yeah.
and so they can just do like more things, which is so funny because a storm is already scary,
Mhm.
quote unquote. And then you have like ghostly activity because it's so charged in the air.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. I was at a networking event and I frequently hand out the business card that has both our podcasts on it.
Mhm.
And it's like usually at the networking thing I'm handing out like my own business card, but I ran out of those. And so I wanted this person to kind of reach out to me about something.
Mhm.
And so I kind of had to explain both shows, and then they started to share this story with me, and it just connects a little bit with what you were saying. And I asked them to come on the show to kind of share it, but they really didn't want to go on the show, so
Fair.
whatever.
If they could write down their
Fair.
story. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a little excerpt of something that
Mm.
they had experienced. So there was when they were an intern, they got a job with a fellow like brother in a fraternity, and they were always messing around with each other. So you think about like the stupid tricks that people play on each other in an office environment. And so one of them was like you're in your office and you go to sit down, and like the guy that kind of rips the chair out from under you, so you miss the chair. Like it's total like frat boy
Yeah.
childish crap, right?
High school stuff. Yeah.
So, and he would always do it like all the freaking time. And it was like he's like I was getting so fed up with it that, he's like I didn't know what to do. Like obviously I didn't want to get him in trouble, but I also didn't want to be like, hurt
Harassed.
or like, like hurt or
Yeah.
like made a fool of, because he's
Sure.
boss comes in or something, whatever. So, unfortunately, he's like it came to an end because there was a tragic accident and his brother passed away. So the brother fraternity, not his brother. And so uh this was like, I don't know, a week or two later he went back to work, and he went to sit down and the chair was pulled out from under him. All right. And so he fell down and he thought maybe I kicked the chair or I moved it. And so when he went up and he get up, to turn around to like grab the chair had moved to the other side of the room.
My God.
Isn't that crazy?
That's funny. I
Right?
would have been freaked out, but also
Yeah.
like, that that's the guy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're still messing with you after death. And
Right. Right. And that's what he said. He's like he just like he's like I said, it was like kind of a tragic kind of death, and
sure.
he was just kind of joking around to show that he was still like okay, like I'm okay. I'm still gonna play pranks on you even after I'm dead.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, thought I'd share that because that kind of connected in with part of your story. So, and I think you said, did you have another one? Or no, you had like maybe some personal things that have been happening that you might want to.
Let's save that for another time
That
because I'll
sounds
have
like a good
I'll have
idea.
a follow-up on that, I think.
Sweet. So, but I guess we're at that time, Jess.
No way. Already?
Yeah, why not? As we've meandered through this story.
We have meandered today. Sorry, folks, but thanks for listening. I hope you liked the stories. And as a reminder, if you have a scary story or a spooky story or a heartwarming story of a paranormal nature, and you want to be on the show, or you don't want to be on the show, but you want to write it down, by all means, get in touch with us and let us know. And we'd love to have you on or to read your story. Um, but other than that, I'm trying to think of a really good drink that I had recently. I ended up having a an Italian wine the other day that I really liked. So, whether it is an Italian wine or ghosts, you should keep your spirits up.